Let's move on. If the original Hebrews, Israelites, Jews were black, who then are the white European Jews? Answer. The white European Jews are descended from Esau, son of Isaac, twin brother of Jacob. They are also known as the Edomites and Idumeans. Esau is the father of the white Edomites who, with other ethnic groups such as the Khazars, white Europeans, Caucasians, and others, make up modern Jewry as it is known today. These white groups, that is Esau's descendants, and the Khazars, Sephardic in origin, descended from Jacob, or Yahweh, converted to Judaism over the centuries. Philip Shad, D.D.LL.D., Doctor of Divinity, Doctor of Letters, in his 1985 book, Comprehensive Bible Helps, writes concerning the Idumeans, which are the Edomites. We quote in part, the Idumeans are the same people as the Edomites. Edom was situated in the Sinaitic Peninsula, southwest of Palestine, a wild and rugged tract of land, but quite fertile. Its original name was Seir, and its first inhabitants were cave dwellers. They were expelled by the descendants of Esau, who was also called Edom, Red, Genesis 25:30. The Edomites were hunters, but after becoming domiciled in Seir, they built cities, engaged in trade, and had a social organization with a king long before the Israelites, their cousins. When the latter, on their way from Egypt to Palestine, reached the frontier of Edom, they were at first denied a passage through the land and generally treated very harshly by the people of Edom. Though Moses recognized the common parentage of the two nations, Numbers 20:14-27. But as soon as the Israelites became consolidated and settled, they took revenge. Both Saul and David conquered Edom. The hostility continued, and when Nebuchadnezzar in BCE 588 destroyed Jerusalem, the Edomites were his allies and took part in the massacre and the pillage of Jerusalem. It was at this time that the Edomites removed, having Seir and subsequently settling in the region south of the Dead Sea, Idumea. After the return of the Israelites from captivity, the hostility between them and the Idumeans was renewed. Here is the historical fact. For John Hyrcanus, BCE 135 to 105, not only subjugated the Idumeans, but compelled them to accept circumcision and the Mosaic law. They had hitherto been Baal worshippers, but they became Jews. In BCE 47, one of their great men, Antipater, was made procurer of Judea by Caesar. There were many Edomites serving in the Roman army during those years. And Antipater's son was Herod the Great. So that's the first documentation of the Idumeans, or the Edomites, becoming Jews. John Hyrcanus, above, was the son of Simon Maccabeus. You heard of the Maccabees. Among those of the Maccabean family who rededicated the Second Temple in BC 165. You know about Hanukkah. The celebration of Hanukkah is the result of that rededication. Herod the Great was an Edomite and was made king of Judea by the first Roman emperor, Augustus, reigning for 37 years. Many of the Herod family were educated in Rome or had lived there for a long time. Thus they became a sort of middleman between Greek-Roman civilization, Greek-Roman paganism, and Judaism, to the great injury of the indigenous Israelites. See, they took over. They took over. They ruled, they got into the government there in Rome, and people looked to them as the originals. Since the conquest of Canaan by Joshua after the death of Moses, Israel had inhabited Judea, with Jerusalem as its capital. Josephus' writings reveal that near the close of the BC era, the Roman Empire invaded Judea, we know that, and thus established its own government. They came in with a government on top of what Jerusalem had already established, and they conquered Jerusalem. The Romans did. Among those whom they put in high places was King Herod the Great, Antipas his son, and many other Edomites. The black Israelites descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, living in Judea during those times, consisted of the Pharisees, Sadducees, Zealots, and Essenes. The white Jews of the time were Edomites, who, as we have pointed out, were forced to convert to Judaism by John Hyrcanus. These Edomite Jews and the Khazar Jews are inhabiting the country of Israel today and are in many other parts of the world as well. They are believed almost globally to be the offspring of the original Israelites of biblical times. When the black Israelites were scattered from Jerusalem in CE 70, through the onslaught of Titus and the Roman army, thousands were killed and tens of thousands more fled into Africa, many eventually migrating to several West African countries. Their offspring remained there for 14 centuries and were eventually caught up in the African slave trade, which began in 1517. We do admit, however, that it was the white European Jews who preserved the way of life known today as Judaism, while true Israel was in exile and became absorbed into other religions such as Christianity, Islam, etc. Now, it wasn't a total package. We know that the Colossians, well, so-called Colossians, the name in Israel, somebody else named them Colossians, which means strange people. Anytime they see us doing something good, we become strange people. Why is that? Name Colossians, strange people. These people got the Star of David on their temple in Ethiopia. And they're wearing biblical garments. They're strange folk. The Hebrew Israelites lost their religious heritage and almost became invisible after CE 70 CE or AD, when Titus and the Roman army marched into Jerusalem and destroyed it. They laid the temple. The second temple that was built by Nehemiah, Ezra, Zerubbabel, and others, they made that temple level with the ground and took everything that we had to Rome. Have you seen the pictures? They got the menorah and the showbread table taken into Rome. That's how they got so much of what we had and what we lost. The Almighty did not completely cast them away because He had said in Scripture, a remnant. I will not completely destroy the house of Judah. He had mercy on us. And he redeemed us and brought us back to where we are now. The Hebrews Israelites lost their religious heritage and almost became invisible after 70 CE AD. The Almighty did not completely cast them away, for thousands have now returned to teach justice and righteousness and to gather the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's our mission today. Amen. Next heading. The white Khazars of Caucasus Europe also converted to Judaism. The Encyclopedia Britannica describes the Khazars as members of a confederation of Turkic-speaking tribes who in the late 6th century established a major commercial empire covering the southeastern section of modern European Russia. It is fairly certain that the Khazars were originally located in the northern Caucasus region and were part of the Western Turkic Empire in Turkestan. The Khazars seem to have been more inclined to a sedentary way of life, building towns and fortresses, tilling the soil, and planting gardens and vineyards. Trade and the collection of tribute were major sources of income. But the most striking characteristic of the Khazars was the apparent adoption of Judaism by the Khagan and the greater part of the ruling class in about CE 740. Documentation from the Encyclopedia Britannica that the Khazars converted to Judaism in the year 740 AD. Read the book, The 13th Tribe. Who has it? By Kosler. The 13th Tribe. The circumstances of the conversion remain obscure. The depth of their adoption of Judaism difficult to assess, but the fact itself is undisputed and unparalleled in Central Eurasian history. This is a quote from this Encyclopedia Britannica. A few scholars have been asserted that the Judaized Khazars were the remote ancestors of many Eastern European and Russian Jews. Arthur Koestler, here he is, in his book, The 13th Tribe, indicates that the majority of the Eastern European Jews are Khazars and Japhetic in origin and not Semitic. They converted to Judaism, Koestler continues, they converted to Judaism in 740 AD. The Khazars lost the name Khazars and became known as Jews. Koestler's research from anthropology, which concurs with history, refutes the Khazars' claim to the status of a chosen race who made their covenant with the Lord. They are not, Koestler concludes, descended from the biblical tribes. John Beatty's book, entitled The Iron Curtain Over America, page 16, states, the Khazars are apparently a mixed stock with Mongol and Turkic affinities and have no racial ancestry in Israel at all. Henry Ford, Sr., wrote a book called The International Jew, speaking about the Caucasian Jews as we know them today, said, they are not the Old Testament people. See page 55 of this book, The International Jew. So the conclusion of the whole matter in brief is that the white European Jews of today are mainly made up of two major peoples, the Edomites from Esau and the Khazars, Japhetic in origin. Stephen Jacobs, a European Jew, friend of mine from the 60s, adds other Caucasian groups to his list. This is my 5-in-1 book. It's no longer in print. I had 5 books in one, and this is the compilation here. Stephen Jacobs' book is in here. The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africans. And that's the one where I say that he did a masterful job. Now, we've had 5 documentations. Documentation from 5 different sources have been presented to you this afternoon. And not one of them, now they say who is not the real people, but they never say who are the real people. Why is that? Why is that? All the European Jews know they're not the same. Well, who is? Somebody must be. Well, who is? Why won't they say it's the black, apprehended folks that were in slavery? Have not been annihilated, have they? The Most High said in Jeremiah 33, where it talks about the new covenant. He said as long as the day and night last, and as long as the tide goes in and out, that's right. And as long as the new covenant. They don't know anything about the new covenant. The Most High did not give a new covenant. He gave the same covenant, but he's going to give a new covenant, but he's going to give it in a different way. He wrote the first covenant on 2 tablets of stone. The first time he spoke it from full of Sinai, right? Second time, told Moses to hew out 2 tables of stone. But then he broke that set because of the golden calf, the molten calf, and he said, hew out 2 more tables, Moses, bring them up. I'm going to write the same law. So that's the third time. There's one more writing of the law. And that's when he writes it in our inward hearts and in our hearts. That's going to be the 4th and final writing. And they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them. You won't even have to go around from brother to brother, from sister to sister, say, know the Lord, know the Lord. They shall all know me, the Most High said, from the least of them, even unto the greatest of them. For I will forgive their sin. I had a Seventh-day Adventist man that asked me when I was in Greensboro a couple of years ago. I had done a lecture there during our Sabbath school on Sabbath morning. And he was in the audience. So Seventh-day Adventist minister. He broke away from his church. He was there beginning of Shabbat and Shabbat morning. So after I gave the lecture, he asked me at the intermission table when we were eating, he said, well, you don't believe that Jesus died for your sins. How do you get your sins forgiven? I said, man, that's easy. Ask me something hard. all through the Tanakh, I have blotted out as a thick cloud thy transgression. As a cloud thy sins, return unto me, for I have redeemed thee. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. I mean, all through, let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his soul, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and God, for he will abundantly pardon. I didn't have to wait 6,000 years to get my sins forgiven. My people are destroyed. And because you have rejected my people are destroyed for lack of money. My people are destroyed for lack of automobiles. My people are destroyed for lack of jewelry. We have plenty of all of the above, but we don't have any knowledge of the Creator. Broken in darkness. 40 million black people in the United States, and all of them are running with the herd. 35 million of them are Christians. Only 5 million are not Christians. Now, you know we got our work cut out. Sunday morning, tomorrow, the church will be packed. And they'll be calling on their God. It's sad. I can understand why Jeremiah said, oh, that's my head, water. My eyes. I cry for our people. I really do. I'm fountain of tears that I may weep, not just in the daytime, day and night. That I might weep day and what? And night for the slaughter of the daughter of my people. That was really, we're in a bad condition. We're in a very bad condition. But the Creator's words cannot fail. Amen. Behold, I will save my people. Hallelujah. I will save them from the east country. I know. Oh, that's the Babylonian captivity. Don't you know history, like prophecy, just like history, repeats itself. Prophecy repeats itself, just like history repeats itself. So we're in another Egypt now. Most of our people are in another Egypt. The shackles are off of their hands and feet, but they've been slipped on their minds. Yes. We're still in slavery as a people. The only people that are free are those who are in the way of the statutes, commandments, and judgments of the Creator, and are doing them. Yes, sir. This is a doing, not just to know what to do. So, all 5 of